Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Blankenburg, and welcome to our tech talk called 5 Things Every Voice App Should Do. I'm really excited to share this content with you, but before, there's just a couple of housekeeping things I want to share with you. The first is, if you're joining us through the On24 console, please make sure to check out all the engagement widgets that are on the screen. There is, of course, attendee chat, and there's a bunch of my teammates behind the scenes ready to respond to your questions and feedback. There's a survey, which we would very much appreciate your response to. It really helps us understand what content you love, what kind of things you're looking for, and how we can kind of shape the future of these kinds of tech talks as we go forward. There's an option to send us some emoticons, which we love to see at the bottom of the screen, so please participate. And finally, our Slack channel just hit 3,000 members, and if you're not a member on it yet, you're missing out. Check out the link to join the channel at the bottom of your screen. And for everyone joining us live through our social channels, we are monitoring that chat as well. So please feel free to ask any questions that you might have. All right, let's get into it. This is called 5 Things Every Voice App Should Do. And as we start with number 1, the first thing that I want to talk about is doing one thing really well. This may seem obvious as we think about websites and mobile apps that we've built in the past. Of course, Jeff, we want to just build one thing that does one thing really well. But I really want to simplify that when we think about voice. There's lots and lots of things that we could do with our voices to be able to communicate with our software, with our APIs, our databases, whatever it is. But when we think about voice, we need to keep it simple. If a user has hundreds of options that they can dive into as they're using your skill, they don't have a visual hierarchy always to be able to understand what they can and can't do. And it can be overwhelming when there's so many choices or so many different things to do. So one example I really like to use is a skill that I've built called Games Back. I am a huge baseball fan, and with the baseball season right around the corner, I'm really looking forward to being able to pay attention to my baseball team. I grew up in Cleveland, and so that happens to be my baseball team. But every morning during the baseball season, I generally jump over to one of the sports websites and look up the standings. And if you've ever looked at a standing screen before, like you see on the screen, you'll notice there's all sorts of data, right? They have wins and losses, but the column that I care about the most is games back. This number represents how far out of first place is your team. So as I think about building a baseball analytics skill, there's lots of information that I could provide, right? What is my team's batting average? What is their win-loss percentage? How did they do in their last 10 games? All of these things are available, and we could find this kind of data and share it freely. But when we want to keep it simple and do one thing really well, we want to make sure that we're serving our users as well as we can. And so when I think about this, I think specifically about that games back column. The whole skill is focused on that one thing. And so you can jump in and you can ask about any of the teams in Major League Baseball, but ultimately you're only going to get the statistics about how many games back from first place they are. And if you have the good fortune of being a team that happens to be in first place, it'll not only tell you your team is in first place, but it'll also tell you who's behind you and how many games back they are. So let's take a quick look at this one. Alexa, open Games Back.
Welcome to Games Back. Which team can I help you with?
Cleveland Guardians.
The Cleveland Guardians are currently in first place in the American League Central. The Chicago White Sox are 11 games back. What team do you want to know about next?
Stop.
Goodbye.
All right, so you can see that's a pretty simple demo, but that's the thing that I really care about. By building skills like this that have that simple interface and just the data that I really care about, it also makes it easy to incorporate into things like routines so that I can make this part of the news that happens to me every morning, or as I get started to brush my teeth. It gets included as part of that experience. Okay, that was number 1. Do one thing really well. Don't overwhelm your users. Number 2, though, is about naming your skill and making your name memorable. So there's one skill that always really stands out to me as having done a fantastic job of this. It's a skill called the magic door. And the idea behind the magic door is it's an adventure story, right? If you've ever done any kind of text-based adventures or any kind of storytelling game, oftentimes you'll say things like, go east or go west, or check the mailbox that's in front of me, or go into the forest. The magic door operates the same way. We say, open the magic door to start the skill. The first thing you hear is a big creaky door swinging open and welcome you into this kind of fantasy world. They take you on a journey through the forest and through the snow, and you can hear your footprints through the snow and crows cawing in the background. In all of those cases, though, they remind you that you went through a magic door. Now, the reason that all of this is important is because, again, much like our websites and our favorites and all the apps that we have on our phones, in all of those situations, you have an icon, you have a name, you have a thing you can tap on. But when people want to open your skill, they have to remember its name. And so something like the magic door, where it's reinforced over and over and over, goes a really long way in making it easy for their users to remember what to do. You can see that there's lots of ways to do this, though. I have a whole bunch of examples on the screen, like Ask the Experts, or Launch Rocket Ship Stories, or Start Your Engine. Now, these skills are all just made-up names, but the words that precede them, these launch words, the ask, begin, launch, load, open, play, and on, all of those words really mean the same thing to Alexa. It means open this application, whatever it happens to be. And so in the case of Start Your Engine might be a skill about the engine in your car and just checking its diagnostics, or checking in on the status of what's going on with your car's actual engine. But Start Your Engine is such a great, clever way to remember how to use your skill. So using these things not only in your marketing, but also in all of the descriptions you have in the store, all of these go a long way in helping your user remember what the name of your skill is. Now, as we're developers and we're thinking about what it is we want to build and how we want to build it, we often want to come up with very clever names. I have a skill that I built where I give you 3 clues and you have to figure out what those 3 things have in common. Now, as I was thinking about naming this skill, I really struggled with it. It was kind of like trivia, and I was trying to play off of the prefix try, but I couldn't really just call the skill trivia. That seems too generic. So I thought about flipping around the name trivia and making it via try, something like by way of 3. But what ended up happening was I didn't think that was a name that anyone would really remember. It was challenging to even spell as I asked people how to spell it. So what I realized as I was explaining the game is that it's very simple. I'm giving you 3 clues. That should be the name of the game. Let's move on to number 3. Our third tip in all of these 5 things every app skill developer should know is to focus on intents, not commands. And this is a really important one for a variety of reasons. I'm building a skill right now that I'm calling voice developer. I don't know if that's where I'll end up with as a name, as we saw just a moment ago, but I think the idea behind this skill solves a lot of problems for a lot of skill developers. As I think about building this, though, I have to start thinking about what are my intents and what are the utterances and the slots that I'm expecting users to fill in as they talk to the skill. So I started with a list of commands, right? Ask voice developer about monetization, or tell me about persistence, or ask voice developer to say bazinga. Those are speech cons. We'll get to that in a second. And I started building this and thinking about all of the ways that people would ask for some of this content. And it occurred to me pretty quickly that, in fact, that's not how users are going to talk to my skill. Those are commands. They include knowledge about all of the information that's found inside my skill. They already know all the names of the speech cons. They already know all the content that might be available. That seems really unlikely. It's more likely, in fact, that they would say things like, teach me something new, or play a speech con for me. They just want to hear a random one. Or maybe, what should I learn next, right? The skill can keep track of all of the things that we've already taught you and find something new from our database to be able to share with you when you have something you haven't learned, right? Let's take a look at this voice developer skill and see how we can use both of these. Alexa, open voice developer.
Hello, and welcome to Voice Developer. Did you know that you can ask for sound effects? Just say something like, play a laser sound effect. What should we do now?
Say bazinga.
Bazinga. What would you like to try?
Play a speech con for me.
Here's a random sound effect called bow wash. 6. What would you like to try?
Play a speech con for me.
Here's a random sound effect called giant monster. 14.
Nice.
What can I help you do next?
Give me a speech con.
Oh well. What would you like to try?
Stop.
Alexa out.
So as you can see there, I actually didn't work through my entire model. And if I say play for me, it always assumes I mean a sound effect. And if I say give me a or say then it leads to a speech con. Looks like I have a little more work to do on my skill. But you can see with Voice Developer how it's unlikely that someone's going to know all of the content that's going on inside of your skill. It's much more likely they're just going to say, give me one at random, or give me one something like this, right? Like a laser sound effect. But they don't actually know the name of the laser sound effect. All right, let's move on to number 4, because I think this one is really important. We're going to talk about simplifying choices. Now, if you think about any conversation that you ever have with anyone, you have a little bit of a back and forth, right? You talk to each other, and eventually you end up asking the other person a question. It might just be, how are you today? Or where have you been? Or why are you late? Or whatever it might be. But there's a question there. And more often than not, the answers to these questions are open-ended, right? There's a huge option of all the things they could possibly say. And that becomes pretty challenging for us as skill developers, but it's also very challenging for your user to understand what they're supposed to say. Open-ended questions are great, and it leads to a lot of very good things, but it also can be really challenging, and we want to make sure that we're asking our questions in an appropriate way. So let's look at a couple of open-ended questions just to start. 1, is there something else I can help you with? Do you have another question? Would you like to know something else? Right? Open-ended questions, give me what you've got, let me know what you need help with. Except that if you actually read those questions, none of those are open-ended. We as humans interpret all of those as someone asked us those questions. We would interpret them as open-ended. We would assume that they want to know an answer. But what we find is when people are talking to a device, they're much more literal. They assume that it doesn't understand the nuance of human conversation. And each of those questions happens to be a yes-no question. Is there something else I can help you with? Well, that's a yes or no question, technically. And so what you find is that your users will respond to that question with yes or no. We don't want that, though. We want to think about, what do we really want the user to say? We want to make sure that our questions are framed in that manner. Because what happens if someone says, do you have another question? And you say yes. Well, now what do I say? I would have to say something like, okay, what else would you like to know about? Or what can I help you with? Or what topic can I assist you with? So let's start there. Ask real open-ended questions. It's very easy to confuse the two because naturally, as we're talking to another human, all of these seem fine. But making sure that you have the right question that gets you to the right answer makes a huge difference. All right, you get to participate now a little bit in this presentation. You only get to happen with yourself. We don't have a big room of people to participate, but I want you to make sure that you're committing to the decisions that you're about to make here. I am going to present you with a choice. This choice should be something that is very, very easy for you to make a decision about. When you know your answer, I want you to really lock it in. I want you to commit yourself to having made the choice, okay? So if you had to choose one of these forever, this means that you can never go back. You can never change your mind. I want you to pick one of these forever. Are you ready? Here we go. Do you have your answer? It usually is pretty easy, right? You either chose vanilla or you were wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Either choice is perfectly fine, but it's very easy for all of us when we see a choice like this presented to us to know exactly what our answer is going to be. All right. We're going to do this again. We're going to start over, start from scratch. I want you to think about what your answer is going to be, and I want you to really commit to it. Let's see if you can come up with your best choice. Again, you get one forever, and everything else is off the table. Here we go. Have you made your mind up yet? Have you even gotten through the list yet? This is challenging. This is a really hard problem for us to solve. Because what if we were trying to present a list like this to our users using only a voice device? This would be impossible. It would be really, really hard. There's so many choices here, and I need to read through all of them and evaluate, is that the one I want? Is this the one that I love? This is a hard decision to make. Being a user that can't see the list, they can only hear it, becomes even more difficult. By the way, did anybody pick Swamp? Swamp is just a crazy name for a flavor of ice cream for me. I'm betting none of you picked it, probably because you didn't even know what it was. Well, I looked it up for you. You can find it right here. It's vanilla ice cream, Oreo crumbs, malted milk balls, chocolate chips, M&Ms, it's like everything all mixed together. Sounds good to me. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I certainly wouldn't turn it down. Let's imagine for a minute that we're building a fruit stand skill, and we want to be able to sell fruit to our users. We have a wide variety of fruits that are available. You can see them all in the picture here. But what we want to do is make sure that users know what they can choose. And so we present it like this. We have apples, bananas, oranges, lemons, grapes, kiwis, blackberries, strawberries, and mangoes. Which fruit do you want? There's a couple of challenges with an approach like this. The first is obviously that list is far too long, and it really doesn't even encompass all of the fruits that we have for sale. But on top of that, we didn't warn them that we were going to ask them a question. So as we present this long list of fruits to our user, they're just listening, but they're not actively listening. They're not doing it like you would do if you were on dialed into your bank on a phone system, and it's like, press 1 to do this, press 2 to do this. Right? We have to listen very attentively and make sure that we know exactly which choice we want to make at the right time, because if we forget, we have to start over. So as we think about this list, we haven't warned the user that they're even going to have to make a choice. And the list we presented them was pretty long. So let's flip that around a little bit. Let's instead, think about how we might do this in a way that makes it better for our users to be able to make a choice. The first thing we do is we front load the question. Which fruit do you want? Then we give them a list. Now, we could do something simple like this, apples, bananas, or oranges. Maybe we could list out all of the ones we had, apples, bananas, oranges, lemons, grapes, on and on. But what's more likely, and again, this is the power of voice we're working with here, we could say something like apples, bananas, oranges, or something else. And if they're looking for mangoes or strawberries or blackberries or whatever else we have in our list, they can just say it. And we should be able to build enough application logic to be able to tell them whether or not we even have those fruits in stock. All of that is very easy and very doable. And this kind of presentation, asking the question first, presenting them with a short list, a simple choice, makes a huge difference in the mental load that we're putting on our user. They don't have to hold all of those things in the air and juggle them as they're trying to make their decisions about what might be possible as they're making their order for their fruit. So just an important thing to think about, presenting them with choices in a way that is easy and obvious without just calling on them and saying, hey, which one do you want? I already told you the list. It feels a lot like when you were in 6th grade English class and your teacher calls on you and you clearly weren't paying attention. We want to avoid that as much as possible. All right, that leads us to our last tip. Number 5, include a variety of responses. So I want you to think for a moment about playing a game of chess. You play against the same person every week, and what you found is that when you sit down to play against them, they make the same moves every single time. There's no variation. It's the pawn, then it's the knight, then it's the bishop. Every single time they make the same moves, and it's predictable. Eventually, you find easy ways to defeat them because they never change their strategy. They never do anything different. It becomes pretty boring. We find the same thing with voice. If you think about what it's like to build applications today, real software, right? Whether that's for voice or anything else, think about the lessons that you've been taught about building for web, mobile, desktop. They all involve style guides, right? We talk about uniformity and predictability and consistency. Those are important lessons to have in those kinds of interfaces because we want a user to know what a button looks like. We want them to know what the hierarchy of the page is, so it's very easy for them to skim and find the thing that they're looking for. But with voice, that's not true. We don't have things to skim. We don't have a lot of interactivity on a screen, although, with devices, we can certainly do a lot of very interesting things with screens. When we talk about voice on its own, my goodness, there is so much that we need to flip upside down. And it's that upside down approach that really makes a huge difference. We are trying to hack humans. The more they pay attention, the better the experience they have, which forces us to make them pay attention as much as we possibly can. So one of the ways that I recommend doing this is to keep it fresh, keep it random as much as you possibly can. The first way that I solve this problem is by taking every single bit of speech that I have in my entire voice application, and I write 5 to 7 versions of it. Now, there's lots of ways you can do this, right? You could have a team of people writing it. You could use some of the most amazing AI chatbots to generate them for you. But ultimately, you want to end up with some variation in the ways that your skill speaks to your user. One time you might say, welcome to the skill. The next time you might say, hey, this is the skill. What can I help you with? Each one of those is really the same thing, right? We want you to get started and welcome you to the skill. But by using different words in different orders, it makes a big difference because the user has to shift their focus. They have to pay right attention to you. So write 5 to 7 versions of every statement you make. Let me give you a quick example. I'm going to open that voice developer skill again, but we're going to just listen to the intro and the exit twice just to see how different they can be. Alexa, open voice developer.
Hello, and welcome to Voice Developer. This skill can give you information and answers about Alexa skill development. Another thing I can do is play speech cons. Bazinga! Just ask me to say a speech con. What should we do now?
Stop.
Don't forget to be awesome.
Okay, that's the first time. Let's try that again. Alexa, open voice developer.
Hello, and welcome to Voice Developer. Did you know that you can ask for sound effects? Just say something like, play a laser sound effect. What can I help you do next?
Stop.
After all, tomorrow is another day.
Okay, so you can see that she's randomly picking a goodbye and randomly picking a welcome message every time that we come into the skill. You can see this here on my slide as well. You can see that I have a whole bunch of different goodbye messages. One of the things that I learned as I was going through this is that there's lots of really cool movie quotes that really are just a goodbye. Those are kind of fun to include. But on top of that, you've probably heard, see you later, alligator, after a while, crocodile. There's actually dozens of those, and you can see a few of them here on the slide. Gotta go buffalo, bye-bye butterfly, see you soon raccoon. I didn't realize, even having children over the years, that there were all of these different variations. That was kind of a fun thing to include in here as well. So we talked about randomizing our speech, but there's another bit of randomization that we can do as well, and that's the order that you present your statements. If we think about building a conversation with a device, there's no rules about how and when we ask for the information that we need. Let's pretend for a minute that we're a travel agent, and we want to build a travel agency skill. So we need to know some information before we can search for flights for you, as an example. So I need to know where you're flying from, where you're flying to, maybe what airline you want to fly on, and also the dates that you want to fly out and return. With this information, I can then go to a bunch of search tools and look up flights about whatever place I want to go to. But are there any rules about the order in which I have to capture that information? Instead of origin, destination, airline, what if I ask for the dates first, and then where you're going, and then or where you're starting and where you're going, and then the airline at the end? There isn't really any rules there because until I have all of this information, I can't really do anything with it. So what's important about this is that if you think about almost anything that you've ever done that's predictable, think about using an ATM or any other kind of computer interface where you know what you're going to do next because you're just trying to get to the thing you want to do. You've probably gotten ahead of yourself on a computer or a website, even a mobile app. In all of these cases, you're just trying to get past the steps that you need to get to in order to get to the thing that you want to do. And if a voice experience is predictable, it actually ends up being a hindrance for the user's experience because they stop listening. They know what's coming, and they're just trying to get to what they want to do. The problem with that is that because they've stopped listening, they're not paying attention. They might even give a wrong answer. I asked you what your departure date is, and in fact, you said, I want to fly on XYZ airline. Well, that's a problem because now they get an error message. I'm sorry, I was looking for a date, but you gave me the name of an airline. And they're like, oh, that's so dumb. Just do the thing, right? You've all been there. We need to be able to hack humans. We need to make them pay attention. And so as a result, it's important to let them know, like, hey, what departure date do you have this time? And the next time you ask them, the next time they're searching for flights, ask something different. Hey, where are you headed? Where are you flying from? If you can remember some of this stuff, that's even better. They probably fly out of the same airport most of the time. But as we think about presenting these questions and gathering information from our users, if they tune out, they're going to give wrong answers. And if they give wrong answers, they're going to have a bad experience. And if they have a bad experience, they're not going to use your skill. So it's important to make sure that you keep them focused and engaged as much as you possibly can. Okay, we have talked about a whole bunch in this session. Lots and lots of content to cover, lots of fun demos to talk to. But at the end of the day, we had 5 things that we covered. I want to make sure you have them all here. Do one thing really well. Make your name memorable. Focus on intents, not commands. Remember, we want to make sure that we're thinking about what a user might say, not what the user knows, the breadth of our entire application. Simplifying choices, right? Really narrow it down so that they don't have to hold a whole bunch of stuff in memory in order to make a choice. And finally, including a variety of responses. By doing this and by spreading it out so that it feels new and fresh every single time you use it, it forces me to pay attention. And it gives me a much better experience. Oh, before I go, I did want to let you know that there's a link to the Alexa design guide in the resources widget. It's really important. If you haven't checked out the design guide, it has some of the tips that you'll have heard today, but lots more about the guidance for thinking about how do we converse with a user using only our voices? How do we build a good conversation? What are all the properties that make up a really engaging experience? The Alexa design guide is a really valuable resource, and you can actually find it at alexa.design/guide. Finally, please don't forget to fill out the survey. It helps me and my team understand what you're looking for so that we can give you the content that you want the most. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was my pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.